Hi guys, so today I just wanted to speak a little bit about Star Wars Battlefront 2. Earlier this year it was suggested that Star Wars Battlefront 2 would have no season pass, and that in turn all DLC for the game would be free to all players. Despite the ambiguity surrounding this suggestion for some time, EA did confirm this at E3 last month. However, in order to recoup the losses faced from ditching the season pass scheme, EA has included a microtransaction system within the game, which has angered some players as of late. Basically, there will be a loot crate drop system in Star Wars Battlefront 2. Drops will unlock extra abilities and weapon upgrades amongst other items that will improve a particular player's multiplayer experience. As usual with these types of things, players have the ability to earn crates through playing the game, but also have the opportunity to buy crates if they want to. The action of including a microtransaction system isn't really what made gamers angry, as the idea of a multiplayer game including such a system isn't exactly a new thing nowadays. Most modern multiplayer games have some form of microtransactions in them. Rather, what has angered some gamers is the fact that the system that will be implemented will potentially create a pay-to-win experience, in which the player who spends the most money on loot crates is the most likely to have some sort of unfair competitive advantage, thus making the gameplay experience somewhat undesirable. The gaming community has an overall negative opinion of microtransactions, especially those of the pay-to-win variety. In this particular case, microtransactions of this variety have been used to replace a season pass system, which itself is not exactly the most loved practice within gaming. This whole situation got me thinking about both the microtransaction and season pass systems, as well as which of the two is actually more desirable to gamers. Obviously, nobody wants to spend extra money on a game that they've already paid for, but video game publishers will always look to make more money with each title sold. So the question I'm actually asking here is which of these two systems allows for a more conducive multiplayer experience? In order to answer this question, I decided to look at the two options and the different implications they may have in one's overall experience of a game. So let's start with microtransactions first. In debates about microtransactions on public gaming discussion forums, I've noticed that gamers often reference two major problems with the concept. The first problem was already referenced in the fact that some microtransaction systems create pay-to-win environments. These systems immediately affect the overall quality of the in-game experience. If one finds themselves doing badly due to the fact that other players have spent money in the game in order to purchase better weapons, characters, etc. early, it could really put them off from playing the game further, as they may feel that they will never be able to compete in the game unless they spend money on it. The second problem is that some microtransaction systems actually push players to purchase items by not allowing them to be unlocked in an acceptable amount of time. These items could be performance or cosmetic upgrades. It is very difficult to pinpoint what an acceptable amount of time to unlock each prospective upgrade is. Earlier this year there was a massive outcry against the fact that it would potentially take gamers 2.5 years to unlock all possible items in For Honor if you didn't purchase any of the game's in-game currency. The question I found myself asking with regards to this situation is whether the time period really is too long, especially if one considers the idea that a sequel may potentially only be released in a few years' time. I know it's a Ubisoft game and everything, but one can speculate. The problem with microtransactions and this whole pay-to-win idea is that sometimes gamers are even divided over whether a game actually does have a pay-to-win system in it. For example, let's look at Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. Some gamers have stated that the unlock system for operators in the game is a pay-to-win system. Operators are purchased with in-game currency that can be earned through playing the game or by spending real-life cash to purchase in-game currency. Each operator offers his or her own unique abilities that may indeed affect a player's performance in some matches. A person never really quite knows whether players who choose to fuse in hostage matches are new or just trolling. Some players do believe that the in-game currency is not earned at a fast enough rate to unlock operators within an acceptable time frame, and thus pushes some players to buy them, meaning that they have an unfair competitive advantage over some players in certain situations. But you know, then you get other players who believe that the currency is earned at a fair pace and that the game doesn't create a pay-to-win situation, and that the benefits offered by each operator are not enough to provide a significant competitive advantage. Whether or not the title does indeed offer a pay-to-win experience is for each person to decide on their own. I don't really think that it does. I mean, I don't really play the game all that often, but I can say that I already own quite a few operators. With regards to microtransactions overall, I don't actually think that most gamers have a problem with microtransaction systems as long as they only allow for cosmetic upgrades, meaning for example a player can buy a new skin or weapon for their character. I know it does really seem very petty for publishers to charge for such items, however they don't really affect one's overall experience or performance in a game. With regards to Star Wars Battlefront 2, I do find it very interesting that EA chose to purposely adopt a system that would potentially create a pay-to-win experience, especially when seeing as such systems were not present in some of their other popular multiplayer titles, such as Battlefield 1. Perhaps it does suggest that most gamers are less likely to be tempted by microtransactions that only offer cosmetic upgrades. This brings us to our second area of discussion, season passes. Now, gamers as a whole seem to be divided on the idea of season passes. It seems that in order to get the general gaming community's opinion about the season pass of a particular game, the amount of content available in the base version of said game, as well as that offered when purchasing the season pass, needs to be taken into account. Again, I don't really think that most people have a problem with season passes or expansions, provided that it doesn't seem that developers purposely made the base version of a game a shell in order to get people to buy the season pass. However, even if a title is released with a significant amount of content in its base version, there is no denying that most multiplayer games that have a projected lifespan of more than a year need extra content to be released regularly in order to remain interesting to the public, and offering a season pass with a significant amount of content is a way to ensure that this happens. Despite the fact that DLC may be needed to keep a game interesting, it must be acknowledged that paid DLC has a terrible effect on multiplayer games in the fact that it divides the community into segments, those who own extra content and those who do not, and in turn impacts one's ability to find suitable lobbies. EA has actually eliminated this threat in Star Wars Battlefront 2 by making DLC free to all players, in turn perhaps extending the potential lifespan of the game. So which is actually better, microtransactions or season passes? Overall, I do think that if publishers have to increase the potential income gained per game sale, I think that the best way to do it would be with a microtransaction system that is only limited to cosmetic items. In that way, a pay-to-win experience is avoided and the player base of the game remains undivided. The degree to which Star Wars Battlefront 2 Star Cards will actually create a pay-to-win experience remains to be seen, but hopefully it will not be very apparent. I do want to know though, what do you think about Star Wars Battlefront 2's Star Cards? Would you actually rather pay for DLC than have pay-to-win microtransactions available to players? Please share in the comments down below. And if you liked this video, please remember to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.